We live in an open plan house with several short staircases protected by glass balustrades. These give a light and airy look to the house, but they're not the easiest thing to hold on to as you're going up and down the stairs. There are some short bits of handrail fitted to some of the glass, and I wanted to extend this to cover all of the glass to give a firmer grip. The handrail that was fitted is 42mm nominal as opposed to the larger 48. There are two standards in common use, and this is inside the house, so we only need the lower 304 quality stainless steel rather than the exterior grade 316, which is quite a bit more expensive. This is what it looks like in section. The handrail sits on the glass with a rubber gasket, and you can also buy from the suppliers various angles and joints. I needed a vertical downwards joint for extending this part of the handrail, and I also needed something to go around the corner. Now you can buy knuckle joints to go around the corner, but they're quite expensive and I needed a lot of them, so I decided that I would do with butt joints rather than have the knuckle joints and just try and cut the angles precisely. The parts came from BM steel, and I marked the job out using some masking tape on the glass, and that allowed me to measure the angle. Going up was 40 degrees exactly, and so I needed to cut my handrail at an angle of 20 degrees, so each part would then give me the total 40 degrees. And at the top the angle was then 50 degrees as it goes to the vertical, so similarly I needed to cut my handrail at an angle of 25 degrees to get a nice butt joint. I also needed to know how far the handrail came over the top of the glass so I could mark out where the end would be. It turned out to be 17mm, so drawing a line 17mm from the edge allowed me to see exactly where the handrails would meet at the butt joint, and then putting a clamp on allowed me to measure from one end right down to the other end to find the total length of handrail. To cut the precise angles I used a chop saw, but the normal wood cutting blade on the chop saw is not suitable for cutting stainless steel, and you don't seem to be able to buy a toothed blade to cut stainless steel. So I decided to use the metal cutting blade from an angle grinder. Unfortunately, the hole in the metal cutting blade is a different non-standard size to that on circular saws, so I had to make up a special washer in order to center the blade properly on the chop saw. Then it was a case of checking the angle, setting the angle precisely, double checking that you had it all the right way round, and then sawing. I found it best to start very slowly when doing the cutting, because the blade has a tendency to skip across the curved surface when it first meets it. Once you've got a bit of a slot, then you can proceed much quicker. The cutting does produce quite a lot of burrs inside and outside, and also discolours the stainless steel because it gets very hot. I found the external burrs could be easily removed with a bench grinder, and that gave a good finish. The internal burrs had to be removed with a file, and this was necessary if you were going to put some of the fittings on so that they would fit inside the tube. The heat from the cutting darkened the stainless, and these stains had to be removed with an abrasive, and I found that one of these spongy abrasives was quite good for doing the job. It is a satin finish on the tubing, so a few scratches going around the tube don't matter at all. They blend in very well with the rest of the finish on the tube. So once I'd cut and cleaned the parts, it was then a case of putting them on roughly using small bits of the rubber gasket just to check that I'd got my angles and lengths right, and then came the job of putting them on in earnest. So the rubber gasket is cut to length. It's quite a tight fit on the tube, so you need some lubricant to be able to push the tubing over the rubber gasket. I tried WD-40, liberally coating the inside of the tube and also putting some on the rubber gasket, and that worked, but it did make quite a mess on the glass, and that took quite a bit of cleaning up. So after that I reverted to using soapy water, which worked just as well and was much easier to clean up. I found that the rubber could be pushed up into the tube to give a neat uniform finish using a little roller. The end caps were a little bit loose in the tubing, so I fixed those in using some grey construction sealant, and once they were pushed in, any external sealant could be easily cleaned off to give a nice neat finish. So there we are, the job done, and I was reasonably happy with the end result, and it's much nicer now going up and down stairs. You feel much more secure holding on to these rails. So I hope this is useful to you if you're thinking of doing a similar job, and thanks for watching.